UK, Canada, and Western allies sanctioned two far-right Israeli government ministers. The United Kingdom, Canada, and other allies announced sanctions Tuesday on two hardline Israeli government ministers for repeatedly inciting violence against Palestinians, in a stark joint move that comes amid growing Western condemnation of Israel's actions in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. National Security Minister Itamar Ben Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich will face a travel ban and an asset freeze, the UK government said. Do not forget to subscribe and like. Thank you. Ben Gvir and Smotrich both lead far-right political parties that help keep Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's fragile government coalition afloat. Both men have faced criticism for their inflammatory comments about the occupied West Bank, as well as their positions on the war in Gaza. We are steadfastly committed to the two-state solution, which is the only way to guarantee security and dignity for Israelis and Palestinians and ensure long-term stability in the region, but it is imperiled by extremist settler violence and settlement expansion, the joint statement said. Itamar Ben Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich have incited extremist violence and serious abuses of Palestinian human rights. Extremist rhetoric advocating the forced displacement of Palestinians and the creation of new Israeli settlements is appalling and dangerous, the statement added. We have engaged the Israeli government on this issue extensively, yet violent perpetrators continue to act with encouragement and impunity. The sanctions imposed by the 5 Western nations represent a break in policy with the United States, while European and Commonwealth allies have increasingly put pressure on Netanyahu's government. The Trump administration has repeatedly reaffirmed the U.S.-Israel alliance. The U.S. has also called for the conflict in Gaza to end, but last week, the U.S. vetoed a UN Security Council resolution demanding a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. While the sanctions are in relation to the West Bank, the Western allies' joint statement added that, of course, this cannot be seen in isolation from the catastrophe in Gaza. We continue to be appalled by the immense suffering of civilians, including the denial of essential aid. Do not forget to subscribe and like. Thank you. Smotrich and Ben Gvir both live in settlements in the West Bank, which Palestinians and the vast majority of the international community hold as part of a future Palestinian state. Both ministers responded defiantly to the travel bans and financial sanctions on Tuesday afternoon, vowing to continue their agenda and accusing Britain of echoing its colonial-era restrictions on Jewish migration to British Mandate Palestine. Ben Gvir, the leader of the Jewish Power Party, said that the sanctions do not scare me, adding, I will continue to act for our country, for our people. I will continue to act and make sure that they do not let humanitarian aid into Hamas. Smotrich, speaking during the inauguration of the new Jewish settlement of Mitzpe Ziv in the occupied West Bank on Tuesday, said that he heard that Britain has decided to impose sanctions on me because I am thwarting the establishment of a Palestinian state. There couldn't be better timing than this. Britain already tried once to prevent us from settling the cradle of our homeland, and we will not let it happen again. With God's help, we are determined to continue building, said Smotrich, who leads the national religious party Religious Zionism. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said the government will hold a special meeting early next week to decide on our response to this unacceptable decision. It is outrageous that elected representatives and members of the government are subjected to this kind of measure, Sa'ar said. Meanwhile, the foreign ministers of the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Norway said in their statement, the measures announced today do not deviate from our unwavering support for Israel's security, and we continue to condemn the horrific terror attacks of 7th of October by Hamas. Today, measures are targeted towards individuals who, in our view, undermine Israel's own security and its standing in the world. Ben Gvir quit Netanyahu's government in January to protest the ceasefire in Gaza, only rejoining the government after Israel returned to war in March. He has repeatedly called for Palestinians to be driven out of Gaza and previously said Israel should encourage voluntary migration of Gazans to countries around the world. Smotrich, who as finance minister has a seat on the Israeli Security Cabinet and holds significant sway over Netanyahu, has previously called for the formal annexation of settlements in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. In May, he said his idea of victory in Gaza would be that the territory is destroyed, and civilians are moved to a humanitarian zone in the south of the Strip or leave for third countries. Last month, UK Foreign Minister David Lammy slammed Smotrich's comments on the possible destruction and cleansing of Gaza, telling British lawmakers, "It is extremism, it is dangerous, it is repellent, it is monstrous, and I condemn it in the strongest possible terms." At the time, the UK paused trade talks with Israel and imposed sanctions on West Bank settlers, but stopped short of sanctioning the far-right Israeli minister. The sanctions stem from growing alarm over the far-right ideology and actions of key ministers in Israel's government, specifically figures like Itamar Ben Gvir, National Security Minister, and Bezalel Smotrich, Finance Minister, both of whom are known for support for settler violence or aggressive expansion in the West Bank. Ultra-nationalist rhetoric, often dehumanizing or inciting against Palestinians. Undermining democratic institutions and rule of law, e.g. by pushing judicial reforms or openly defying military legal norms. Western countries, even historically staunch allies of Israel, are increasingly uncomfortable with policies that escalate tensions in the West Bank, settler attacks, land grabs, military raids, obstruct the two-state solution, long supported by the international community, alienate moderate Palestinians and Israelis, pushing both sides toward perpetual conflict. So these sanctions reflect not only individual behavior, but a broader concern with systemic drift toward authoritarianism, religious extremism, and permanent occupation. Several recent developments may have triggered this. Reports of settler violence against Palestinians with tacit government support. Statements by ministers explicitly advocating for annexation or ethnic transfer. Increasing domestic pressure in the UK, Canada, and EU to align foreign policy with human rights. Potential solutions and pathways forward. Clear conditionality. Western governments should tie future aid, arms sales, and diplomatic support to behavioral standards around human rights, settlements, and the rule of law. Support internal democratic forces, empower Israeli civil society, judicial independence, and moderate political voices, who are often the first to resist far-right policies. Renewed international diplomacy, re-engage with broader peace processes, possibly through Arab states via the Abraham Accords, UN and EU forums, economic and legal pressure mechanisms like Magnitsky-style sanctions. Firm red lines. Western governments need to define, publicly and clearly, what actions will trigger real costs: settlement expansion, annexation moves, or war crimes. This move is unprecedented, but not unjustified. It marks a turning point in how tolerant the West is willing to be of far-right ideologies, even in allied democracies. While it's a diplomatic warning shot, the underlying message is broader. No democracy is immune from accountability when it undermines core human rights. The challenge now is to pair moral clarity with strategic engagement, pressure with pathways. Otherwise, sanctions risk becoming symbolic gestures rather than instruments of meaningful change. Do not forget to subscribe and like. Thank you.